Welcome back. As new coronavirus cases in the U.S. surge, U.S. President Donald Trump is ramping up efforts to downplay the numbers and the virus itself. Over the past week, newly confirmed cases in the U.S. increased by 20%, hospitalization by 13%, and daily deaths by 11%, unfortunately. More than half of U.S. states reported their highest single-day cases this month. Trump on Monday tweeted that the worsening outbreak is a, quote, fake news media conspiracy. What is the impact of this rhetoric on the health of the American people? With the U.S. presidential election less than a week away now, how are both candidates factoring the new COVID-19 numbers into the final days of their campaigns? And after November the 3rd, will we see any shift regardless of who wins? I'm now joined in Beijing by GONG, Professor of Economics at China's University of International Business and Economics, and from Washington, D.C. by STANLEY, Defense and Foreign Affairs Analyst. Professor Gong, let me start with you. Even though Trump contracted the virus last month, he went straight back to downplaying the virus after his treatment and went right into the campaign trail. In a recent example, on Twitter, he said on Monday, "Cases are up because we test. A fake news conspiracy. Many young people who heal very fast, 99.9%. Corrupt media conspiracy at all-time high. On November the 4th, topics will totally change. Vote." I mean, what do you make of what he said?
I think the kind of a treatment he had is an exception rather than a rule. I think on average, I think the American people, the taxpayers, spend maybe close to $1 million to treat him for a couple of days he spent in that hospital. I think reportedly the medicine bill is amounting to $400,000, and he said that he will offer this treatment for free for American patients, which is totally unlikely. It's totally impossible in my opinion. I mean, look at the medical bill at that scale, and it's just impossible, I think. Now, granted that many people who got infected recovered pretty fast. I think the nature of this virus probably has changed greatly since its outbreak. But the fact of the matter is, American people are still dying. I mean, there are 1,000 people a day are dying, and there's news reports that in Midwestern states and some Southwestern states, the hospitals are overwhelmed by patients. So it's still a very dire situation. I don't think this is true that it's not a big deal. To say that, to downplay that, is total misinformation, if not disinformation. I mean, he's doing this obviously for election reason, but I think there's going to be a reckoning on his action in the past. His policy of treating and containing this virus has been a total fiasco. 220,000 people have died because of him, I would say, because of him. America could have avoided this horrible situation if he had taken actions more resolutely, and here's a plan for this. As Vice President Biden has been saying, he doesn't have a plan. So I think he's going to see American people speak very loudly on November 3rd, and I think he's going to be voted out. There's no doubt about it.
Well, I think that is the hope of some Democrats, many Democrats, in fact. Stanley, let me go to you. What do you make of Trump's attitude towards, reporters and the news media? We know that he walked away from, if I remember correctly, Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes when he was confronted with what he considered a hostile question. Do you think that will hurt him eventually, for his campaign?
He is clearly not doing as well as he thought he would be. Earlier, before the pandemic, I suspect he thought he had a very good chance of winning. Now the polls show him down. He may be reacting to that. There is a lot of early voting. I went to vote last week, and there was a line of people. I have never seen this before the election. They have opened it up now, partly, I think, because of the pandemic, because they want to avoid long lines on election day. But it is quite extraordinary to me. Americans, we've been criticized for being so apathetic. This year, people are voting in very large numbers. And another concern...
Yeah, 64 million Americans have cast their vote so far.
Yeah,
Staggering number.
It's reaction. It's a reaction to that. So they're spreading it out to make it safer and encourage. And there's this, not only the virus, but this controversy over mail-in voting and whether that will be accurate or not. And people are very concerned we could have a dispute after the election, a constitutional crisis over whether the election returns are valid or not.
But Professor Gong, you can argue both ways, right? On one hand, you can say that many are, disgruntled, not happy with the president's handling of coronavirus. But on the other hand, you can also say that those early voters are there because they're galvanized, they're Trump's base, and they're galvanized by what Trump has said. Which side do you think has a better chance of winning?
Well, as a general rule, if the turnout rate is going up, that means Democrats will have more votes. I mean, that's a general rule. I think we're really going to talk about 100 million people going to cast their ballots by the time of the election time. That's November 3rd. That's already 2/3 of the likely voters this year. And with that, we're really talking about between 65 to 70% turnout rates. And with that kind of a high turnout rate, I think there's going to be a lot of votes for Democrats. And the current statistics are showing that of the votes already, the ballots already being casted, there's a large proportion of registered Democrats in states like North Carolina, for example, in Texas, in Georgia. I mean, we're talking about Texas and Georgia. These are traditionally red states. These are Republican states, right? So I think all indications are pointing to the fact that President Trump is going to lose that election. Now, regarding the question of whether there's going to be a dispute of those ballots, particularly mail-in ballots, I think it very much depends on how much of a margin that Vice President Biden is going to win by. If there's going to be a large margin, there's not much of a point of picking up a fight, right? So, remember in 2000, when the dispute between Al Gore and George Bush went to the Supreme Court, I mean, we're talking about a difference of 300-some votes in Miami-Dade County, right, in Florida. But if we're going to have a large margin difference, it's a moot point of picking up a fight here for President Trump. And I think it's quite likely that we are going to see a very large margin. In my opinion, it's going to be a landslide victory on the night of November 3rd. We're going to see if it's going to happen, because there are 4 states that are going to announce results by that time, because these states are starting to count ballots, mail-in ballots, way before the election started on November 3rd. These states include Texas, North Carolina, Arizona, and Florida. And each and any one of these 4 states, if it's lost by President Trump, he's gone. I think he's. I mean, if you look at the tally of the votes, any one of these 4 states he lost, he's going to lose this election by a very large margin. So I think we can actually we're going to see some results by the end of the night on November 3rd. And if he loses any one of these states, I think we're ready to declare his loss. President.
We'll definitely see what happens on November the 3rd. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about public health. Stanley, what do you think has been the impact of the president's attitude towards COVID on the health of the American people?
Well, obviously, we've lost a lot of people. A lot of this is going to be the long-term damage. Even people who recover, many of them are seriously ill. This is an extraordinary disease. I'm not a physician, but just from what I'm reading, this is going to have a serious long-term impact because of the lingering effects for a lot of people. And we are going to have to put in place other long-term measures, I would think, to prevent the recurrence of this. People talk about the possibility of other pandemics. Again, I am no expert, but I didn't see this coming. And this is quite extraordinary. Another impact is the economic impact. A lot of places, there's talk about a K recovery. Some people are doing very well, but some people are doing very badly. It is heightening inequality. that is going to be another serious problem down the road.
Right. You know, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows recently said in an interview with Jake Tapper on CNN that the administration is not going to control the virus. And later on, he added that, you know, they will defeat it and having a vaccine ready. What exactly does he mean?
I think what he said is what he means. I think this is totally pathetic. I'm quoting ex-President Obama's words. He delivered a galvanizing speech yesterday in Orlando to a whole bunch of potential voters, and he said the White House is waving a white flag. That's what it is. I mean, that's just a total fiasco. And I think you know, for the Chief of Staff of the White House to say something like this, that's, you know, it's really pathetic. It's a total surrender, I think, and it's a, in my opinion, it's a crime to the American people. You know, I think I'm not shy about saying this, that to some extent President Trump has blood on his hands for causing, you know, something like 220,000 people's death at this point, and the death tolls keep mounting. And I think the projection is that's going to reach 500,000 people by the time all of this is over.
Yeah, we do hope that the situation will be under control soon, not just in the United States, but across the world. Many thanks to John Gong, Professor of Economics at China's University of International Business and Economics, and Stanley Kober, Defense and Foreign Affairs Analyst. With that, we'll come to the end of this edition of The Point. As always, follow us on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Liuxing in Beijing. Download the CGTN app to watch our show, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thank you for watching.